Welcome to the Dirt Life podcast. My friend Kenny, you're from Elevated Tree Service out of Victoria or Souk?
Victoria, yeah. Souk, yeah.
Souk area. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
This is the Dirt Life podcast, but what most people don't know is before I got in construction, I was in the tree business, essentially growing trees, moving trees and stuff like that. So a big reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast is to talk a bit about your tree business, although it's not dirt related really, except trees grow in the dirt. But
Yep.
I was out in the springtime. I filmed some stuff for you guys. I was extremely impressed by your customer relations and kind of like how you deal with the customer and how efficient your guys just were on the job site, and you as a leader just kind of led them. And the way that you guys just picked apart these trees, like I'm terrified of heights.
Yeah.
So like my mind is blown when I'm watching you guys. I'm flying with a drone up there, and you're up there like it ain't nothing.
You get used to it after a while.
Like you just have a rope around it, and you're like chopping the tree down. Like you pick the things apart. So going up there, is there a system that you kind of use to take the tree down? Like you take all the limbs off first?
Yeah, that's normal for us, is so that when you're dismantling the tree, if you don't start from the bottom and work your way, systematically to the top, things can kind of get hung up, and you just lose control over things that you cut off of it, and then that creates a hazard for the guys on the ground.
When you're dropping the limbs down, like you look down to see if your guys aren't there, but like
I do.
no,
Some guys don't.
some guys don't.
Some guys just expect them to just kind of watch them and work. But I like to always make sure that I count hats on the ground, just because, some people that are climbers, they are paying attention and they're focusing intently on what they're actually doing, and that part of it is dangerous enough. But I don't know. I think that it's important to think about, the whole thing happening all at the same time. But we also use those.
Two-way radios or whatever.
Yeah, we bought their Cena units, their motorcycle intercom, and so we put them in our hard hats. Well, I did, and I mean they work all right. Sometimes they're crackly or they don't connect properly. You gotta have glitches and issues with them, but they do.
Better than nothing.
Pardon me?
Better than nothing.
Yes, or yelling or telling them to shut the chipper off so that the job site's quiet so that you can communicate with them. It speeds up production a lot. It creates a much safer work environment for sure. Then you can kind of work more as a unified team if everybody can kind of be, get that rope, do this, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean?
So I guess to start off with, talk a bit about your business. For example, if there's a big storm and trees fall over and hit power lines, like you kind of deal with that. Explain that a little bit.
Well, being out on the West Coast, our weather is usually a little harsher than it is inland, and especially now that our ocean temperatures are rising slightly every year or every second year. We get more wind and rain, and this new thing called an atmospheric river. Like I feel like the first time I heard it ever in my whole life was 3 years ago.
What is it? I've never even heard that.
An atmospheric river is basically a lot of rain, right? It's cloud formations that come in, and I think a couple years ago it brought so much rain that it washed out a whole bunch of the highways, like the Coquihalla got
I remember
washed
that,
out. And that's just basically from flooding, but because our terrain is so mountainous and steep, and we have such big trees everywhere, that it creates a lot of problems. So anyways, with the wind, it pushes trees down, blows them over on houses, power lines, and we deal with a lot of different commercial properties, and not too much work for BC Hydro because they have their preferred companies that they use for maintaining the power system itself for them. However, we do take on contracts and team up with other companies that are in place to deal with that, so that's kind of nice to be able to go out and help with the disaster relief, you could call it.
What type of tree work are you doing?
Mostly.
Yeah.
Well, as a business owner, you take on more work of what you want to take on, right? You can say no to other stuff and yes to the stuff that you want to predominantly work towards. So I, as a young climber or a young arborist, worked with a company that predominantly did large removals. So that's kind of the avenue that I went with my company, just because that's the most experience that I had and felt like that was what I specialized with, talent-wise the best, was large removals and kind of hazardous work instead of like your typical, fruit trees or hedges or all that sort of stuff that I just feel like it's kind of boring. Plus the money is not in it as much as,
You know, it is kind of boring.
yeah. And
Shit
so
you're doing is epic.
it can be for sure, yeah. I mean, it's a bit depressing and daunting when you work in the up at heights in the trees in the rain and in the wind day after day after day. It takes its toll on you emotionally, mentally, physically, obviously as well. But having said that, when you get to help somebody and when I think we probably do 50 to 75 jobs just in the residential sector, of hazard trees that fall on roofs of houses or on structures of some sort and power lines. People are wanting you to come and help them. Obviously, they're stressed out and worried about the damage and upset about that. But when you come to help somebody, it feels pretty good for sure.
I bet it does. I love helping people in general, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes it gives you more purpose, I think.
Absolutely.
Find. So,
Yeah, it brings joy to something that, as I said before, the mundane motion that you go through every single day of being cold and wet and dirty and you know what I mean? It just kind of it makes it worth it at the end, right?
so what?
Plus the money, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's why you do it. That's
Insurance.
why you're in business, right?
Insurance work has got to pay. Yeah.
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 The type of guys that work for you, what do you look for? Like, are you having a hard time trying to find guys? There's a labor shortage
Yeah.
in every industry. So, do you have a tough time trying to find guys with the right skills?
I do. I think that's probably our most difficult thing to conquer is just to find the right help. I mean, obviously, it's something that every trade has issues with finding good help. But, I think, getting out of high school, like 95% of my peers were right into blue collar trades. You know what I mean? Doing carpentry, plumbing, electrical, whatever it was. And I think nowadays, I don't know straight statistically speaking, but I see a lot of people that are younger that are not doing blue collar trades. And then obviously you take in work ethic is hard, and on top of that, what I was saying before about your typical trades, arborist work is not a typical trade. It can be, but for some reason it's not, and so there's less people going into that industry in comparison to the other trades, and so the capital amount of people that are there to pick from are smaller as well. And then of course, if a guy's good work ethic, strong, healthy, good personal lifestyle, reliable, somebody's using him somewhere and doesn't want
Already
to let him
has a
go.
job. Yeah.
Doesn't want to or he's working for himself. So if you find guys that are good, you do your darndest to try to keep them happy and keep them working hard, and you know what I mean?
While I was on site with you, I met a couple of guys that worked for you. They've worked there, I don't know how many years, right? So you're retaining good guys, which is amazing. Everything that you were doing was like super impressive, from the type of work to the type of people that you're employing, and you retaining them. What's the challenge you're having right now?
I think economically we're going through a little bit of a difficult time. I think that goes across the board for most people in the workforce, and I don't think that it's prejudice just against blue collar trades. I think that in general there's a lot of difficulty getting work, getting enough work, just because inflation is higher than it's ever been, I feel like, and specifically speaking, especially in the residential sector of our workforce, there's not a lot of people that want to spend $2,000 to $3,000 on a tree. I mean, if I had that in my bank account, I could think of 10 different things I could rather spend it on than a tree in my yard. Not saying that I don't want people to spend money on the work, because that's how we make our living, but it's getting more difficult that way, specifically to answer your question, because of those reasons. Yeah, just staying as organized and efficient as we possibly can, so that when leads come in, we're able to jump on them quickly, be competitive with pricing, and I think making sure that we keep track of everything in a very organized sequence to document everything. That way we can not let anything slip through the cracks, and we make sure that each client feels like they matter, and their jobs are being looked at properly and assessed properly. You know, just start to finish through the whole thing, I think is a good way of looking at it. You know, take for example, a lot of guys out there that are first starting their trade, and you know, they go out and price something at say $2,500, and that's what they can do that job for. And they know if they go there, they've got a limited amount of equipment, they've got a limited amount of wages, and they can go there and they can make themselves some money that day. But you got to take into consideration a lot of times that from the moment that client calls the phone is when that relationship starts to build. So sometimes guys don't grasp that or find that out until later on. You know, it takes a lot of administrative help to make sure that that person feels like they're not being ignored. You know, they go through our system to make sure that nothing gets forgotten about, and from point A to the actual finished product of them paying and us giving them a receipt, that whole relationship has to take into consideration of
in that pricing, right? Like,
in that pricing, and what that relationship is with regards to, like, when the rubber hits the road, that $2,500 job could have been a $3,000 job, or, you know what I mean?
or should have been a $3,000 job.
Yeah, just as an example.
Yeah, I get it. Going back to the person who has $2,000-$3,000 and they don't want to spend it on a tree, perhaps they have to because the tree is going to fall on the house, or like
Preemptive measures.
exactly. So then I guess at that point they don't really have a choice, right?
Yeah, and you feel for people like that too, but a limited amount of feel.
Yeah.
It's, you know, we base our work off of helping other people. Everything we do is to help somebody else. And not saying that other trades aren't the same or same thing that we're doing here, but in a nutshell, I mean, we're going to either identify a hazard or, you know, to clear debris away from houses to make sure that rodents don't get into the structure, or fire suppression, you know, with natural disasters, or like the wind that we get over in the western part of the island there that we live on in Victoria. So yeah, helping people is basically the focal point, I would say, probably, of our trade, and that's part of the reason why I didn't want really to go and trim hedges and go through the motions of just, you know, pruning vegetation. I wanted to do stuff that's more geared towards safety and helping the public to be, you know, safe and looked after.
Well, you're adding more value, I guess, by helping people than just like trimming a hedge that really doesn't do much except cosmetically make the yard look better. That's not helping.
The value thing is a good thing to bring up, because this week coming up, we've got a big crane job coming up where we have to take a dead tree out of this person's front yard. I'm talking, like, this thing is probably 8 feet in diameter at the base or more, and it's I got the crane guy to measure how tall it was, 160 feet, and it's dead. It's a great big huge Sitka spruce tree, and it's right over top of a septic field and tanks, so there's nowhere to drop any of the branches or any of the wood on the property, so we have to set up a gigantic crane on the opposite street and reach into this person's over top of one property to get to the next. And I was talking to the homeowner about this, and he I was asking him, how long the tree has been like that for, and apparently when he bought the property, it was healthy and living, and now 5 to 6 years later, it's dead and needs to be removed, and that's kind of crappy. I mean, this thing is going to cost like 15 grand to take out, and not his fault, but what are you supposed to do about that? And I think he hired, or he contacted a half a dozen other companies to come in and look at it, and he didn't go with any of them, just for some of them never got back to him. Some of them gave really, really low prices, like 3 grand. Like, that guy doesn't even have a clue what he's doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, these types of situations that increases property value. For a person that wants to come on with a realtor who's buying a house, the first thing that they'll look at is that big dead tree has got to be taken down before we want to even consider buying this house. Right?
It could be the nicest house in the world, right?
Totally, but that has to be dealt with first. You know what I mean? And there's lots of times when we're doing this type of work around properties, because the conditions on new home buyers are that these things need to be taken out, or these things need to be trimmed and removed, or et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
I've never really thought about that before, but makes total sense, right? Before you buy a house, I mean, look at the trees.
Totally.
Because they could die within 5 years, and then you're screwed.
Absolutely. And over in Kelowna, those fires that just happened that pushed through the valley there's, I'm not sure how many of the properties are affected, but there's quite a few, and I've got a couple friends that are working over there, and they're taking out, I think insurance wise, to be able to renew or keep valid house insurance, all of the properties there now have to have a certain clearance from structure to forest vegetation away from the house, otherwise their insurance is going to be void, or they won't provide it for them. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done around these types of properties, and in places like that where, like, any normal summer day is 40 degrees or more, right? It's like things go up like nothing.
That's something that really I never think of, or people where I live never think of, because we never have that problem. We don't live in the mountains, and we have houses close together and stuff like that. That's completely different, right? Like, we don't have wildfires really here, or maybe out in the prairies a little bit, but that doesn't really affect many people other than the smoke. Yeah, that's just something I don't ever think about.
Yeah, and it's tragic because, like I said, people don't have, like, the wherewithal to just pull all this money out of and pay for this sort of stuff. But I mean, what do? Take out a loan? Go to the bank?
You might have to.
That's my point. And that's harsh to think about. Like, that's just another thing on top of what we have to deal with on a regular basis that makes things harder for us, right? It is what it is, though.
This next job, is that going to be kind of the biggest, coolest job you've ever done?
It'll be up there.
Up there?
For sure, yeah. It's a 270-ton Liebherr crane. I probably didn't pronounce that correctly.
Liebherr, whatever.
Liebherr, but it's got 200 feet of main boom, not including the jib, which we won't be using, which is good because that, dramatically reduces your weight at the radius that we'll be working at, which is quite far away. So we're gonna be plucking, making picks from the tree at, I think, 120 feet radius from turret.
That's far.
Yeah, and at that height, or at that radius, I think he can handle 18,000 pounds, which is huge. It's a big crane.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, it's big. Anyways, this thing shows up in the morning at, I think, 7 o'clock, and it carries, it has 3 trailer loads of counterweights that accompany this crane to make sure that it has enough to, because we have to pick it up and then put the pieces in the driveway, which are, I think they're another 50 feet from where the tree actually sits. So we'll be taking pieces and going farther out to set them down, which is, again, you got to take into consideration those weights, going farther instead of coming closer to you, gaining capacity, because that's what a normal situation, you pick something up and bring it closer to the crane.
Immediately Yeah.
Yeah, we will have probably 5 guys working on that project. I'm not the lucky climber.
Who's the lucky climber?
His name is Mike Plains. He started working for me about 4 years ago, and he right away, the first day, I don't know if I should say this might be embarrassing to him, but the first day his working interview, he comes out and he tops a tree at about 80 feet and it hit my truck. And I'm like, really? But I saw...
He's been there 4 years, so he must be doing something right now.
Yes, so I saw potential in him, and so I chalked it up as an unnecessary, call that he made. It wasn't really a big deal, but the fact that he wasn't precise with where he put it, and yada yada yada. But then he starts working for me for a number of years after that, and he's a phenomenal arborist, phenomenal climber, very, very skilled at what he does, very good at his decision making with how he's going to dismantle trees, and even with pruning, he's very talented. I think he's 32, 33, something like that, maybe 34, somewhere around in there. And yeah, he moved away from my company about a year ago, just geographically moved to another part of the island with his wife, and every couple of months he calls me up and says, "Hey, what have you got? What have you got?" So he comes back down and does a couple of days worth of work for us. And anyways, the story on this one was he kind of called this tree once he knew that I had it. And I mean, I've done so many big trees, I don't get the same thrill as I used to, but he still likes to do them because I think the company that he works for up there is
The smaller type stuff?
yeah, smaller stuff, a little less
That's
exciting.
fun.
Not as much as we still do.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I get to have him do it, and now I've got 2 of my other climbers that are both a little bit miffed because they want to do it as well. It's bragging rights, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
Oh, I get it. I love doing epic shit.
Yeah, totally. It's kind of neat, but we'll have trucks and chippers set up there, and as the crane takes the pieces off and sets them down on the ground, we'll process all the debris off the tree and then stack the logs in the driveway for the client, and they'll pick away at cutting it into firewood after that.
So, seeing as you can't drop them straight down because there's a septic field there, you have to crane every single one down, or did you on that one job I was at, you guys had like a big zip line kind of.
Yeah.
You doing that for that
We
too?
could do a portion of the dismantling of the debris from the tree, like all the big limbs.
Right.
But I think that it'll probably be just as fast, if not faster, if we just crane the whole thing out.
Yeah.
Normally we show up at 8 o'clock in the morning, get situated, or just before 8, get situated, introduced to the client, the crew, set up all the equipment on the job site where we're going to start working, and do our safety meeting, and then go through job specifics with the crew and make sure that everybody knows exactly what's going on, and each person has their own task, what they're doing. This guy's climbing, this guy's bucking and limbing, this guy's feeding the chipper, this guy's running ropes, etc., etc. And we'll go from there. The crane, I think, is going to show up, possibly 30 minutes to 60 minutes before we do, because I think it takes 90 minutes for this thing to set up.
Yeah.
Which is quite a lot of time. I think the crane transporting from its yard and setup time is $1,000, and then dismantling is another $1,000 even before the thing starts working. So it's $2,000 right off the hop.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to get set up a little bit earlier than we are, and hopefully by 8 o'clock we'll be starting to cut pieces off of the thing.
I wish I was there.
I know it's going to be. I'll take some pictures for you. They won't be as good as your pictures, but they'll show what we're doing.
It starts when?
Wednesday.
Wednesday. I can't get there that fast.
Right. But it's going to be pretty epic.
When it has to be right, you can trust Leica Technology to help you get the job done and grow your business with their cutting-edge technology. Training employees is challenging and expensive, but Leica's simple to learn, simple to use products allow you to get your workforce up to speed much faster. Trust me when I say Leica Machine Control will help you move more dirt more efficiently. For more information on Leica Geosystem Solutions, please visit leica-geosystems.com.
A big focus of the podcast is like the labor shortage. So like you being a business owner, you have a different perspective than just the normal employee. So I'm trying to ask each guest kind of what their ideas are for solutions to help maybe people get into construction or trees or something. Like how are we supposed to attract people into what you do, for example? Like
The only real idea that I have is to do your best at training the guys that you already have, or looking for trainable guys. When you have a person who's already established in their trade, already been doing something for a number of years, they know how to do it, they have pride in their work, they're confident in it. As soon as they start working for a guy who wants to try to say, hey, do this my way, you can kind of get a little bit of friction happening there with the relationship. And so, depending on the person, obviously. But, you know, I run a company that I like to do zero damage. I don't want any drama with any of the guys, and we want to be as efficient as we can, and let's have fun while we're working every day as much as possible. You know, every trade has its ups and downs with the stuff the guys like to do and the stuff they don't like to do, and hopefully they balance out as much as possible so that the guys can kind of realistically, in themselves, take the good with the bad, right? But in finding people that are already really skilled, sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to beat bad habits out of them, or prove to them that this way is more efficient or faster, or, you know, constructively criticize on, you know, attitude or workmanship or team playing. I mean, obviously everybody, regardless of whether they're super skilled or not, kind of have all these types of things in their workmanship disposition already. But if you take a person that knows far less than a person that's been in the trade for a certain amount of time, I think overall it's a little bit easier to mold them into what fits the natural company aura, or the company's. But like I said, I mean, I think everybody has the same issues. The question is a little bit hard to answer properly, because my idea might not be the same as somebody else's. But I think that, again, probably the best way is to try to take or find guys who have a good work ethic, that are really invested or interested in the trade itself, and take them and want to learn and hone in on their ability, and give them responsibility as much as possible, and teach them. Other than that, I would say that I think I probably want to downsize my company a little bit, just to do some of the work, or more of the work myself, and have less issues to deal with. Yeah, keep more of the money while you do that too.
yeah, no, for sure. On the last few podcasts, the common topic that came up was like bigger is not better. Just because you have more employees doesn't mean you're gonna make more money in some cases, right? Like,
I had a conversation with an excavation company just a couple of days ago. We do some land clearing projects as well, mostly residential land clearing for development of low-income housing, or for apartment complexes, rental units, stuff like that. And he was saying that he had 15 employees and a number of machines for a number of years, and said that he struggled with the size of his company and being profitable for a number of years. And he said, I don't know why, but we stuck it out.
ego.
He said he didn't know why, but he stuck it out. And I think that you're probably right, amongst maybe a couple of other
You want to be the
things.
big guy. You want to, like,
and take pride in what you've built as well. And we're competitive with other businesses. I mean, I think life in general is competitive.
Competition is good.
Our nature is to be competitive, especially if you're good at something. He said we grew in the last couple of years to over 30 employees, and he said he's making more money now than he ever has been. So he was explaining to me that there's a threshold as size a company, either you go back down or you push harder and move up. And I think that for us specifically, if we were to push harder and move up, I would probably have to try to knock out a couple of competitors in my area, because there's really not that much work for all of us as a whole, unless you try to take over someone else's clients or whatever. That's why we've managed to buy out a couple of companies in my area, so we technically own 3 tree services. I'm not really happier bigger. And more money, I feel like, doesn't solve the issues of more stress. And, you know, a couple of years ago we had, I think, 12 employees, and every weekend there was unfinished tasks that need to be done, and every weekend there was more little hiccups and problems. This got damaged, that, go collect that check, finish that job. And, you know, that to me doesn't spell success in the long run, because I'm not happier dealing with more problems. I'm happier with having more of a balance between professional and personal life. You know what I mean?
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I've learned that money's not everything. Like, I used to go work up in camps and oil sands type stuff. I was never with my children or with my ex-wife at the time. Like, I was always away. Like, that's not life. Yeah, I had money, but I had more money than time, and like, I couldn't even spend money. So what's the point? So then I decided to work here at the city. I was home every night, making less money, but it was more consistent. So I worked here for 10 years and had a way better life. Now I retired from that. Now I have all the freedom in the world. You know, for the first few years I was broke. Like, I've explained this already. I'd sleep in my car and do whatever I had to do to make it. But the freedom to do whatever I wanted, like if I wanted to drive to Vancouver or go on a trip anywhere, I could do that as long as I could afford it. But like, I had freedom. So I've learned to choose freedom over money any day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important. And then the people around you that want to have relationships with you, like your family, or it's a lot easier to keep that.
So as a business going forward, do you want to downsize a little bit?
I think we are going to. And I'm just I'm seeing the way that the economy is rolling, and I mean, there's wars happening all over the place, and that really affects the economy as well, negatively, for tradesmen like us. I mean, of course, it helps some people, but I don't think that growing bigger or staying bigger is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna downsize a little bit, and I'll work with a couple of guys who I've trained, and we'll just kind of call it the A team. And we'll work on bouncing work back and forth with each other, and we'll look after things, really hone in on developing skill and safety, and see if we can't see if we can't just dial things in and be as efficient as we possibly can, both on the job site but financially as well. I like to have nice things just like anybody else, and I think that the chances of everybody in the business that works for my company having more money, more time, is the end goal, or not even the end goal, but like the next goal that we're shooting for, right? If I have less headaches, less employees, less things to manage and monitor, I feel like I can be more picky and choosy with the jobs, with the money that we make. It can be higher. I can say no to a lot of the lower priced jobs that we have to take on now because we have to keep our volume higher. So if I can do that, then I can pay my guys more. They'll be happier. They won't work as much. they'll be healthier mentally and emotionally. They'll have all the things that you were just talking about, right? I think that's important for all of us. And then, I mean, when you build a team like that, a relationship like that with the guys that are highly skilled at their trade, that have more money and have loyalty to the company and to you both professionally and on a personal level. I mean, that's everybody's goal, right? I feel like.
Yeah.
Maybe not everybody, but
Well, that's what the goal should be, though.
that's right.
But people get greedy and they, whatever. But yeah, that's the goal for me.
Yeah.
Like your team could at that point be unstoppable. Everyone's happy.
Yeah.
Everyone's living the best life.
Yeah.
Everyone works hard, gets along. Like, be the best team ever made.
I think that a lot of business owners, I feel like, especially in the Victoria area, maybe I might piss some people off by saying this,
I
but
love it.
I don't really care.
Nothing's off limits around here.
They want to be a business owner, but they don't understand about how to be an entrepreneur.
Yep.
And I think the difference is entrepreneurship is something that you understand business and you understand how to make the company work for you. And what works for us, or what works for me, I think, and Jasmine, is to have that work balance. I still like to do the work. You know, I'm not a 35-year-old guy that wants to sit in his nice pickup truck and make money off of his employees. I like to do the work. So, I mean, I would rather be out on the saw working with the guys and teaching them and showing off and getting stuff done, and you know what I mean, rather than saying, you crew do this, you crew do that, and then just sit back and say, I'm a business owner and make money off of people. You know what I mean? Like, get real.
That's not impressive at all. To me.
No,
Like,
it's not.
being in the trench with the guys is like, that impresses me.
I would just say that it's more of a leadership role than an ownership role, and that's the way that I've always been. That's always been my personality. And even when I had the company running at a much bigger level than it is now, we had, you know, twice the volume, if not more, and I had, you know, twice the guys, and I had to do a lot of the sales work. I was doing a lot of estimating. And in doing that, I'm driving around, I'm doing a lot of calling to a lot of different clients and checking up on them. You know, as you're driving around, you've got time in between each appointment, and you're always, like, sometimes I would have 150 calls in a day, just in an 8-hour period. That's incoming and outgoing. And that's just me working, hustling, getting it done, right? And every time I'd show up to the job site in between estimates or something, I'd be getting my hands dirty, doing something, you know what I mean? Tinkering with the chipper, or fiddling with a rope over here, or, you know what I mean? Like, I can't keep my hands off from stuff because it's who I am. It's what I want to do. It's what I like. So, yeah, it's kind of neat.
I can clearly see your passion for what you do, and I love it. Like, I love passion with anything. So, you're going to downsize, scale down a little bit. What's the dream here?
Well,
the dream work,
it's kind of
like for the government, or
no. We're gonna get into
commercial.
We're gonna get more into utility work. It's kind of. I started an apprenticeship to become a certified utility arborist a little over a year ago, and it kind of was a little bit weird for me to be in the trade almost 20 years already full time and be starting a new apprenticeship in the trade. So, but I wouldn't even call it humbling. It was just something that I never put any effort into or any thought into starting to do this type of work. But I see real value in it. And the reason why is because I would like to think that it's kind of recession proof. There's no other type of work out there that's more important than keeping our power system working. You know, it's the most essential infrastructure that we have. Without power, we don't have anything. We'll go back to the Stone Age. So I think that I know that there's a massive amount of work that needs to be done to maintain our vegetation around our power system in BC, specifically on Vancouver Island and the surrounding Gulf Islands. as well as, you know, Vancouver and the surrounding areas over there, which I won't go over to the mainland.
Yeah.
But yeah, doing that, and we actually just landed a nice project on one of the Gulf Islands that will be starting in the next couple of weeks, and it's lasting kind of 5 months, which is great because I'll pay out less in advertising and I'll pay out less in fuel and wages and wear and tear and all that sort of stuff. So it'll be nice for that.
So the guys stay on the island?
I'll
Take
leave,
turns, or?
I'll leave half of my guys and half of my equipment working in the residential and commercial in the Greater Victoria area, and then I will go over with probably 1 to 2 guys to go and start working over on one of the Gulf Islands. And I would like to say that it's probably going to take over as predominantly what we will start doing in the future. And I think another reason why I like to start doing it is because there's a shortage of talent in this part of the trade. The certified utility arborists are ones that go through, I would say, more schooling academically and are doing more hazardous work than arboriculture as a whole.
Mm-hmm. You're dealing with climbing trees and power on top of it.
Yes.
Which
Yeah.
jumps to trees.
Yes, it can for sure. So developing new and more established safety protocols, kind of changing, making changes for the better with that sort of stuff with the company is something that I'm happy for. I'm excited for. It gives me a little bit more of a sense of pride because I think it just takes your company and just puts you one step ahead or one step up from where you were and against other companies as well. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Nothing positive except for the fact that you can get injured and hurt yourself a little bit more. But again, that's why I was
You have the
saying-
training to be able to do that. So
Yes, agreed. And that again goes back into what I was saying before about the public safety. It's important to do something that you're passionate about, and I'm passionate about the type of work that is based solely upon helping people.
doesn't get much better than that. Mm-hmm. Is there anything you want to talk about?
I mean, other than the put a little bit of thought into coming over here and talking about
You can talk about whatever you want.
the business, but I think we've touched a little bit on everything, kind of the business aspect of things, and the employees and the workforce, and yeah, the job in itself in a nutshell. Sometimes I hate it, other times I like it.
Well, that's the same with what I do. I think everyone is kind of like that, right? But
Yeah, going forward, I think that less is more. Yeah, being busier and having more stress, dealing with higher volume, I feel like is not easier. And going back to what I was saying before about that contractor with their excavation company, he was saying that another land clearing company approached him and said, "Hey, you want to buy me out?" And he was going, "Yep." And I think the other company was kind of joking, but throwing it out there as if it was a serious question. Mm-hmm. And I was just saying to him, like, why? Like, why do you want more? And he goes, "Well, if you've got the right help, why not?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, but I mean, I think that's the problem, is finding the right help for it." And he goes, "Well, it doesn't bug me." And I'm like, "Well,
Whoa,
you're
you can't find the right
resilient."
help.
What's that?
It will bug him when you can't find the right help. Like, we're in
Yeah.
a labor shortage here. Like,
Actually, my dad works for this guy. I think that's the reason why he's happy, because he's got a talented operator working for him. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my dad's been running a machine for probably 45 years, and he's probably the most talented person that I've ever met with regards to hands-on stuff. I mean, anytime I've ever needed any help with hydraulics or electrical or need a wrench or, hey, how do you do this? I mean, there's nothing I can't think of that I can't phone him and be like, hey, what's this about? Or how do I, and he does, there's not ever been anything that I can think of that he hasn't had some experience with, which is pretty cool. It's humbling, you know. It's really humbling.
Dads will do that to you.
Sometimes, well, you know,
I do it to my kids all the time.
yeah. I think there are certain things that we, you know, like for example, the business aspect of things, you know, I wouldn't go and start getting advice with that because I think that the rubber doesn't hit the road on that aspect of something, but the physical part of actually getting stuff done or, you know, the hands-on part is something that I probably will never catch up to him with regards to that.
Well, you can't, like, times are so different now, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, I found between myself and my children, like, I grew up without the internet, without Google Maps. Like, when I was 18, I was a truck driver, and I had a big paper map.
Yeah.
I had to memorize where I was going.
Absolutely.
Because I couldn't drive and shift and read this map at the same time.
Yeah.
So, like,
I used to be co-pilot all the time with the map books for sure. I was just saying to Jasmine yesterday, I was silly and we went over to her sister's place and I got a whole bunch of Dalmatian white hair all over my black jacket. and apparently I was being a bit OCD over it because I needed to get this dang white hair off of my jacket. And I forgot my phone in winters. I haven't done that in probably 5 years or more. I think the last time was probably at a gas station. He set it down on top of the pump. But anyways, I was thinking about going back to get it while she was having lunch or dinner with her uncle there. And I'm like, I don't know Calgary. How am I going to get back? I don't even know where to go. And she's like, well, you can take my phone. And it immediately was like, well, I don't think I can even buy a map book anymore from a gas station. Do you think?
I don't think you can.
anymore?
I don't think so.
No. That's hilarious.
I mean, you just kind of have to ask around.
Yeah. I looked at the gas station, couldn't find one. Yeah, kind of silly. But yeah, the age of electronic everything is, yeah, it changed everything. Yeah.
Yeah, like to meet up with my friends, I had to phone their house phone from my house phone and be like, I'll meet you at the mall in front of this store at this time. Like, if he never showed up, you would never meet up, like,
No.
lost.
Yeah.
There's no way to find them.
No. Yeah, I know. And now you can text them or you FaceTime them or
Yeah, I'm here.
phone 'em or,
Where? Right
Yeah.
over here. Okay, I'll be right there.
Yeah, I know.
Like, so much different.
It's
and
more
like
convenient.
our fathers had it even harder than like we did.
Yeah.
Like they were like super old school stuff.
Yeah.
So much harder, but that made them so much better. Like trauma makes amazing people.
Or,
I like to think.
Or not. I agree, but
Not trauma,
even-
but hard times and like
I mean,
difficulty.
when every single thing that you have to do in your life just takes more elbow grease, it makes you a more, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And nothing is hard, I feel like, anymore. Everything comes right away. Everything's easier. You know, like, yeah, it's just, times are different but it also, that relates to the reason why there's a labor shortage, because people are lazy and they don't want to work hard.
Yeah, they're not built the same anymore.
No, and that's frustrating. You know, and dealing with a lot of the guys, like they're paid to do a job, but you know they want to make $30 an hour or higher, and they don't really want to do much for it, and they want to get off early, and they want time off. You know what I mean? You want to give them extra work to help them out because they need money, but it's like, why? You know?
Crazy world we live in, and it's getting worse and worse. But
it's
for now, I'm just trying to do what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, no, it's getting pathetic.
Still doing stuff the hard way. I'm using technology, but like, shit, I'm still doing stuff the hard way.
But it's how you know how to do it.
No, I know, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sometimes there isn't a better way. And if that all dies off, how are you going to carry that on to the next day?
Well, I know exactly.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Kenny, it's been an awesome podcast. Thanks for coming. We covered a bunch of great topics about your business and all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me on. It's been great.
Up in the top corner, that's his website. You can check him out if you're in the Victoria or Sauk area. He's on IG. I will put his IG in the description, and you guys can check them out. He does some badass stuff, and yeah, I can't wait to watch you do this next job in a week or so with the giant crane.
Absolutely.